Tonight, tough talk on tariffs. Alberta's Premier pays a visit to Mar-a-Lago. How Danielle Smith is describing her conversation with Donald Trump.
We're going to face tariffs. It's a question of how long.
The list of those vying for Liberal leadership narrows. Who will run to be the next Prime Minister?
It's a matter of being able to engage with and to work with the entire country.
Agony in Southern California. Canadians among those who've lost everything.
We love our community, and everyone wants to come back.
What officials are saying about the conditions still to come. Plus, on patrol in the South China Sea.
One step closer to just being able to plug and play should a conflict arise.
The value of Canada-U.S. collaborations in a global shipping route.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. We are heading into another critical week for Canadian politics. Premiers are set to meet with the Prime Minister to discuss a response to tariff threats from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The government says all options are on the table, as one Premier already had her own meeting at Mar-a-Lago this weekend. Danielle Smith ensuring energy exports are front and center in the ongoing talks. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
It could be one of Canada's most important bargaining chips, but is the government willing to use it?
What I can tell you is everything is on the table.
Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly had that to say when asked if the government is prepared to cut off energy exports south of the border, a step the minister wouldn't rule out in the face of Trump's 25% tariff threat.
For those who are watching us right now, it is important to understand that the threat is real. And we're acting on it. And that's why I'm calling every political leader in this country to be on board, because this is not time for division.
CTV News has confirmed Canadian officials are narrowing a list of American products that could be targeted with retaliatory tariffs. And Joly says diplomatic efforts with U.S. counterparts are ongoing, but this trade expert says Canada needs a measured response.
Subtle. You can't threaten, but you can certainly point out things that are obvious that might get overlooked in the rush to policy in the U.S.
In an interview with MSNBC that aired in full today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is ready to respond.
As we did last time, we are ready to respond with tariffs as necessary.
Alberta is taking their own diplomatic approach, too. Premier Danielle Smith met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, where she says she had a friendly and constructive conversation, highlighted the U.S.-Canadian energy relationship and how hundreds of thousands of American jobs are supported by energy exports from Alberta. Premier Smith adding she'll do everything she can to further Alberta's and Canada's interests.
We're going to face tariffs. It's a question of how long, and Danielle Smith's doing an excellent job to make sure that period of time is as short as possible.
Canada's energy exports have become a focus of trade talks and are expected to be front and center when Minister Joly returns to Washington this week and when Canada's premiers meet in Ottawa on Wednesday. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. Premiers will soon be meeting with a new Prime Minister as the Liberal Party seeks a new leader. So far, we're learning of several cabinet ministers who say they won't be running. Steve McKinnon, the latest to bow out. That has some worried about the lack of representation from Quebec. CTV's Colton Prale explains.
Labour Minister Steve McKinnon is the second high-profile Liberal in as many days to announce they won't run for the party leadership. McKinnon saying time constraints didn't allow him to mount the kind of campaign he wants to run, also highlighting the need for experienced and pragmatic bilingual voices. It's part of a growing number of calls for strong bilingual candidates, including from the party's Quebec lieutenant.
It's not a matter of being perfect in every possible language. It's a matter of being able to engage with and to work with the entire country.
While Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, and Christy Clark all speak varying degrees of French, strategists say Anglophone Liberals typically fare worse in Quebec.
I do think a Francophone leader could easily come in a strong second to the Bloc Québécois and best the Conservatives. With an Anglophone leader, it's going to be a tougher sell.
The timing couldn't be worse for the Liberals, who are now facing a battle on two fronts in La Belle Province. Since becoming Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre has made appearances in Quebec 19 times, including 12 rallies. Since September, the Conservatives have moved from third place in Quebec, 6 points back of the Liberals, to now 11 points ahead of them, and only trailing the Bloc Québécois.
It's a province where they could lose more than half the seats if these numbers were to hold to the next election. And so it's really concerning because the Liberal Party cannot win a national election without Quebec.
But Quebec MPs say it's policy, not language, that will decide who voters choose in the next election.
The issue right now is stewarding the economy. We have to demonstrate to Canadians that we actually offer the best program.
One Liberal MP says even if the party does lose seats in Quebec, if the right candidate can bolster support in Western Canada, it could be a net positive for the party. Colton Prail, CTV News, Ottawa.
Firefighters from Alberta and British Columbia are set to help battle wildfires in California. Dozens of trained professionals from the two provinces are being deployed. U.S. officials confirming tonight the number of deaths from the fires jumped to 24. Those crews will join the thousands already fighting the raging Los Angeles fires from the ground and in the air. Teams have made progress on the Palisades fire as they scramble to contain the flames fueled by severe drought conditions and strong Santa Ana winds, with more than 12,000 structures already destroyed. CTV's Kathy Lee has the latest on the conditions and the Canadians sharing their devastating loss.
The fire danger level critical for much of Southern California. Of the 6 wildfires that broke out, 4 are still active, including the Pacific Palisades fire, now expanding in other directions. All that's left of many neighborhoods, haunting echoes of what once was. This was the Weber family's home. This is it now. They learned of their loss on TV.
The news announcer at the time said, so if you look behind me, all the houses are gone. We saw it going. I mean, it was horrible.
More than 150,000 people in LA County are under evacuation orders, some lined up at this recovery center.
Lots of tears, anger. We're going through the stages of grief.
Firefighters report making progress battling the blazes, but the forecast calls for the powerful Santa Ana winds to return.
These winds, combined with low relative humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in Los Angeles County very high.
Of the thousands of firefighters already on the ground and in the air, dozens arrived from Mexico to help today. Canada also confirming 60 firefighters from Alberta and BC will be deployed as soon as Monday, with more resources to send in the days ahead. Quebec has sent 2 Super Scooper planes, one temporarily grounded after an unauthorized drone collided with it. The FBI releasing these photos of the damage and saying they're now investigating.
We have equipment that can detect the drones in the air, but also we work backwards to identify the actual operator.
Aid not just coming for the firefight. This charity in Calgary sent 800 pounds of supplies to LA for people's 4-legged family members. The generosity of others has lifted those experiencing the worst. And now each day, the focus is on the future.
We love our community, and everyone wants to come back.
Though coming back may take several years. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
U.S. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance is weighing in on who should and should not receive pardons for their actions during the January 6 riots.
If you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned.
Vance told Fox News Sunday there's a bit of a gray area in some cases, breaking slightly from incoming President Donald Trump, who has promised to pardon many of those who stormed the Capitol trying to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Canada and the U.S. share an unparalleled defense relationship forged by common values and deep historical connections. That's on display right now in the South China Sea, a global shipping route that has been thrust into chaos, with China beginning to flex its maritime muscle across the region. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is on board a Canadian warship sent there to promote calm.
In these troubled waters, for months, territorial disputes have been escalating, with clashes in the South China Sea between coast guards from the Philippines and China. For the last week, the Royal Canadian Navy has been shadowed by multiple Chinese warships through the East and South China Sea. Previously classified, CTV News can now share that the USS Higgins has joined HMCS Ottawa on this deployment as part of Operation Horizon to promote rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific.
Sir, welcome aboard.
Good to be on board. U.S. Navy Commander James Billings, the second in charge of USS Higgins, sat down with CTV News to discuss the value of collaborating with Canada.
Working together, proving this interchangeability is one step closer to just being able to plug and play should a conflict arise.
Conflict readiness includes collecting intel while at sea. Enter the Canadian Air Force Cyclone helicopter, call sign Griffin. CTV News was given the opportunity to accompany the crew on an operation in the South China Sea.
The Royal Canadian Air Force crew here on board Griffin are using radar and sonar technology to scan the sea below for any submarines and any warships that may be ahead to ensure safe passage for HMCS Ottawa. Now, anything can really happen in this airspace. We're currently near a spot called Fiery Cross. It used to be a reef, and the Chinese built an artificial island on top, complete with an airbase, combat aircraft, and mobile missile launch.
During our deployment, as the Air Force traveled closer to Fiery Cross, a Chinese warship tracking below made this call over marine radio back to HMCS Ottawa.
Canadian warship 341. This is Chinese Navy warship 571. Your hello is proceeding to our island for avoid misunderstanding. Hold course and keep away from our island.
The Canadian Air Force pilots followed international regulations, staying a minimum of 22 kilometers away from the Chinese base at sea, though following airspace regulations didn't prevent a dangerous event from taking place during a similar deployment in October 2023.
We began to have to go lower and lower in the air as the Chinese jets came lower and lower above our aircraft.
Captain Theodore Yan, a Canadian Air Combat Systems officer, was part of the crew on board a Cyclone in October 2023 when a Chinese fighter jet intercepted them in international airspace, firing flares in their direction.
I did look out of the cockpit windshield and see the flares come out in front of us. The thought that if one of those flares had actually collided with us or gone into one of our engines, it could have been a really bad day.
Thankfully, on that day, everyone made it back safely to HMCS Ottawa, though it's a reminder of the risks involved in this contentious region. Heather.
CTV's Adrian Gobriel reporting from the South China Sea tonight. A top-level Israeli security delegation met in Qatar today for talks on a Gaza hostage ceasefire deal. Qatar and fellow mediators Egypt and the United States are making renewed efforts to reach a deal before President-elect Trump takes office next week. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has reportedly spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the phone to discuss a deal.
We have right now President Biden's top Middle East advisor, Brett McGurk, in Doha. He has been there for a full week, hammering out with the mediators the final details of a text to be presented to both sides, and we are still determined to use every day we have in office to get this done.
The U.S. National Security Advisor says there's a chance an agreement could be reached before Biden leaves office. Trump has strongly backed Netanyahu's goal of destroying Hamas. While Trump had promised to bring peace to the Middle East, he has not specified how. His Middle East envoy met with Netanyahu yesterday. Here at home, public health officials are warning about a rise in stomach infections across Canada caused by the highly contagious Norovirus.
It doesn't take a lot of virus to initiate the infection. So very strict adherence to personal hygiene. If you are infected with it and sick with it, you should avoid contact with other people, and other people should avoid contact with you.
There is currently no vaccine for the virus. Officials say the illness can resolve on its own after a few days for healthy adults, but rapid dehydration can be a concern. Experts point to hand washing as the best way to avoid getting sick. Coming up.
Think about what you're doing when you're yelling at a 12 or 13-year-old kid.
Blowing the whistle on abuse against young referees. Canada's women's hockey team crushed their U.S. rivals at the Under-18 World Hockey Championships.
Seconds wind down. Canada is golden.
Canada defeated the United States 3-0 at the championship in Finland to capture the gold medal, and it's Canada's third gold medal in 4 years. An issue that continues to plague sports at all levels. Fired up coaches and fans harassing the referees no matter their age. An Alberta senior hockey official is blowing the whistle on verbal abuse that targets young refs. Alison Bamford on the added layer of protection to keep them in the game.
Hockey coaches and hockey parents, you need to do better.
An Instagram plea viewed more than 1 million times. This Alberta hockey referee has had enough.
Think about what you're doing when you're yelling at a 12 or 13-year-old kid.
Surveys suggest verbal abuse is the #1 reason refs quit in any sport. Dave Cadoon says the yelling this season is particularly bad, especially towards young refs.
When they get yelled at, they start second-guessing themselves. Their confidence starts to drop. And when it comes down to instances such as that, where are they going to learn if they don't make mistakes?
These Saskatoon teenagers started reffing for the money and love of the game. But even working in a U11 league, some games like this one can end with yelling from coaches and harassment from players.
Well, it's pretty stressful because we're just kids and we're trying our best out there.
Saskatchewan recently joined provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, adopting a green armband policy. The color identifies youth officials with zero tolerance for abuse. Some refs say it's working.
It's not very often after they installed the green armband. It's been a lot different. Coaches are not yelling, they're just talking to you.
It's an added layer of protection on the ice and a way to keep refs in the game.
We're trying to retain these young kids. Most officials start at age 12, which is a great age, but they quit after the first or second year.
The puck can't drop without referees, and post-pandemic, Hockey Canada saw the number of officials slashed in half. But on the ice here, there's promise, with Saskatoon minor hockey seeing improvement with ref retention. It comes with hope that kinder actions can help grow the number of officials across all sports. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Coming up after the break.
We'll become the greatest state in the world, Canada, USA.
No.
The memes and meltdowns from Canadians as Trump sets his sights on the North. When news happens, people are quick to react on social media. And there was no shortage of responses from Canadians when Donald Trump posted about the 51st state. But the idea has snowballed, with some finding clever ways to voice their views. CTV's Kamal Kramali takes a look.
What started off seemingly as a joke by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump,
referring to the PM online as Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada,
has now become,
sounds like we're living in an episode of South Park,
all too real.
No, right, Canada!
Trump with his eyes now set on Canada.
You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like.
As the 51st state.
No!
But online, through the tears, the jokes continue.
Canada can't become
some part of America. That's the country I pretend to be from when I'm traveling abroad.
This edited image of Trump shopping online, in his shopping cart, Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. Some Canadians jumping on board.
And we'll become the greatest state in the world, Canada, USA.
With some conditions.
We just get to keep our healthcare system, education system, standing army, RCMP, Canadian dollar.
But many people of the provinces and territories
No!
standing firmly
The plan, rename provinces to Trumpeter, slap his name on the CN Tower and
against adopting the Stars and Stripes.
But Canadians, they respond politely. Sorry, but we're good, thanks.
Hey, Donald, have we got a deal for you?
Green Party leader Elizabeth May with this counteroffer.
But maybe California would like to be the 11th province. How about it? California? Oregon? Washington?
That sparked some creative content online. So, sure, it started off with a bit of humor. But when it goes from silly to serious,
we don't need to be anybody's 51st state.
Some are still choosing,
Well, welcome to the United States, Canada.
to laugh about it. Kamala Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, Christmas has gone to the goats. One holiday tree turns into a tasty meal. Weeks after Christmas, some are still enjoying a piece of the holiday season. Well, goats are, anyways, celebrating a tasty treat in the form of a discarded Christmas tree. Farmers across the country are accepting them. CTV's Sarah Plowman tells us why.
Long after the Christmas feast, these guys are just getting started. A buffet of branches, the gift of greens, Christmas castaways with a new purpose.
So the trees are important because they're really good for their digestion. They are also a natural dewormer. They also enjoy the flavor of it. They're sweet to them. That's why, as you saw, they go crazy over them. Those are the boys. We also have the girls over here. They're hiding out right now because they're a little more dainty.
At farms and zoos across the country, trees that lit up living rooms are now lunch for goats.
They do like the fresh needles, right? But they will clean them right up. It's usually like a toothpick.
For some, dropping them off has become a bit of a post-holiday tradition.
Helps with the recycling of the tree, so no scraps goes to waste, which is wonderful, and that the kids actually get to see the goats and the donkeys and all the animals kind of rejoice that it's the second life for their Christmas tree, which is really lovely to see.
A sweet sample of sap. They love the flavor.
They strip them right down, so people will think that they only need to bring us the limbs of the trees. The bark's actually just as important as the needles in their digestion. They strip them right down to the bare wood.
In Winnipeg, it's no different.
Yeah, this is yours.
A tree treat for goats whose milk is used to make soap.
In the middle of winter, when they don't have too many fresh green things, they love the taste of the needles.
Sustainable and satisfying. A win-win for these kids after Christmas. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Everyone likes a holiday treat. That is our newscast for this Sunday evening. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Sandy and Omar will be here with you tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.